Hello and welcome to the Scatterable channel, and today we're going to be building the best $2,000 gaming PC of 2025. Wait. Hello and welcome to the Scatterable channel, and today we're going to be building the best $1,500 gaming PC of 2025. If you wanted to run your favorite games, not even just 1440p, but even 4K on a gaming PC that is going to be premium but not overly expensive, all while being able to stream your games to Twitch, YouTube, edit that footage in your favorite video editing software, along with any other multimedia and productivity stuff, you can do that in this all-in-one $1,500 gaming PC that's gonna look great and perform very well. And if you don't know how to put together this PC, don't worry. I'm gonna show you how to put together step by step the parts going inside of it, how to install Windows, drivers, and then it's 1440p and 4K gaming performance. And then if you should build this $1,500 gaming PC build for 2025. With all that said, I tried to make things as easy as possible if you wanted to build this by including a full PCbuilds.gg link in the description down below, where I've got all the parts you'll need to assemble this PC in a neat little list, all at the lowest prices possible, not just for the US, but across in Europe and even Australia. So with all that said, I'm gonna stop talking and let's get to building. Okay, the items you'll need to build this PC are a pair of scissors, a banana, an 8GB or bigger USB flash drive, which is what you'll use for your Windows bootable media device when it comes time to turning on the PC for the first time and then installing Windows. Don't worry about this, we'll address it later. And then finally, one like on this video. Is that too much to ask? All right, so for our motherboard and CPU, you want to go with Ryzen for a high-end PC like this because they will offer not only the most performance, but also the best socket currently that is going to be supported for even faster CPU upgrades in the future if you want to do that. So for the CPU, I'm going with the Ryzen 5 9600X. This is a 6-core 12-threaded CPU, still very capable, and if for any reason you wanted to get an 8-core CPU like the 7700X, 9700X, or even the 9800X3D or 7800X3D, you can do that with this PC, and my favorite CPU alternatives will be linked in the PCbuilds.gg link in the description down below. There I've got other recommended CPUs alongside this 9600X that again will work perfectly fine with our motherboard, like this Asrock B850 LiveMixer Wi-Fi, and the only reason why I chose this is because it's silver. There's no performance reasons, there's no outstanding reasons, just because it's silver. As long as it's a B850 motherboard and it has ATX in the title, it will work with this PC build. So I could have something different linked in the PCbuilds.gg link, but regardless, whatever I got in there should work with this build. And if we open this up, we've got our Wi-Fi antennas, have those saved for later. And here is our motherboard. Let's pull this out. And if we look underneath this box right here and we pull this open, look at this. Now going forward, no matter what you mess with in this PC, there's going to be some sort of manual like this handy quick start installation guide that came with this Asrock motherboard. And that is to say, if you have any questions on what does a certain component do, how do I put it inside the PC, always refer to the manual. And I'm gonna go ahead and scan this QR code, probably get access to the full motherboard manual, which we will need for later. But if I were to open this up, yeah, I'm just giving good overall information, but I'm pretty much gonna show you what you're gonna see in here in this video regardless. But again, always refer to the manual if you have any questions on anything. So to insert our CPU into the motherboard socket, it's gonna be pretty easy. Just go ahead and unbox your CPU, take it out of its plastic protective enclosure. But as you'll notice here on the CPU, you'll see some triangles that are all located on the top left of the CPU, whether it's on the outside or even on the inside. And the point of that is to help you align this CPU correctly in the socket. So to install the CPU into the socket, it's gonna be pretty straightforward. Just press down this lever, open this up, pull this open, and then with that triangle, you're gonna wanna line that up with the triangle on the inside of the socket. Drop this in gently, give it a little jiggle, that's in there. Pull that back down and then press it with this lever, pull that out. Now let's go ahead and move on to the RAM and SSD. All right, so for our RAM and SSD, this is not technically what you should go with. What I'll have in the PCbuilds.gg link is what you should actually go with. Just I have this RAM kit that's lying around and I gotta use it. But if you were to use it, I've got this 64 gigabyte kit of DDR5 memory, and you do not need 64 gigabytes of memory for gaming. You need 32. So 32 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz with a cast latency of either 28 or 30 will work perfectly fine with this build. And once again, don't worry, I've got you covered in the PC build strategy link with the exact memory you should use. And if you're wondering, no, the brand doesn't matter. I've got this Acer Predator memory that looks really cool. That's gonna pair up well with this motherboard. But if you wanted to go with a different brand, as long as it has the correct speed and cast latency and that it supports EXPO profiles, you're in the clear. Oh yeah, those are gonna be nice. And now for our storage, I've got this 2 terabyte PCIe Gen 4.0 SSD from SK Hynix? Okay, we're good. The SSD is in here. Anyways, yes, this motherboard can support PCIe Gen 5.0 SSDs, but I'm telling you now, they're pointless for gamers. Ain't no way you're gonna be using the full speeds of a PCIe Gen 5.0 SSD while you're gaming or while you're even downloading games to your SSD. So let's go with a cheaper 4.0 drive that's still gonna be plenty fast, but allow us to get one in a 2 terabyte configuration. So with that, let's put these onto the motherboard. So to insert our RAM into the motherboard, first I want you to identify these 2 inserts here on the RAM stick because they are different sizes, meaning this will only go in one way into our RAM slots. Now, as far as which RAM slots to put these in, they'll actually show you on the motherboard. Right here, you can actually see you're gonna wanna put your RAM sticks into slots A2 and B2 first. That's what it literally says on the motherboard, which is always going to be these 2 RAM slots that are farthest away from the CPU with one free slot in between. So let's go ahead and see if this RAM stick will insert like this. Let's see, I think it's gonna go in. Let me do this one first. All right. I'm gonna press it in all the way and hear that click, and I really do mean it. Gotta make sure these are fully inserted into the motherboard. Otherwise, you'll run into issues. Now, next up, we gotta go ahead and put our M.2 SSD here into the topmost M.2 slot. Now, Asrock have an interesting mechanism for unlatching this. So I'm gonna press this thing in here. That should be able to pull that off. And now we have access to our M.2 slot. And I'm gonna go ahead and remove this and remove this because we want to remove these plastic covers. That way our M.2 SSD makes contact with the heatsink. And then as you can see with the M.2 SSD, there's this little notch here on the actual connection, meaning this is only going to go in one way. You are not going to mess this up. Line it up correctly, click it in there, press this down, and we've got a little tab right here that I'm going to pull around. So that way the SSD can be flush and underneath this tab, and then I'll push it back over like this. Now the M.2 SSD is in there. And finally, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back on, see if I can get it the first time. May need to press that in, and yeah, it's on there. All right, for the case, we're going with the Corsair 3500X. Now, do you need to get this exact PC case in order to make this $1,500 PC build work? No. If there's an other case you're eyeing at that you like better than this one, you can totally go for it. Just make sure it has ATX in the title, and I promise you, anything else in regards to what cooling, what fans, and what components you want to use in that PC case will have the same compatibility as this one, just as long as it has ATX in the name. But the reason why I went with this Corsair one is since we're doing a $1,500 build, I didn't want to cheap out on the case, and the 3500X here has some pretty decent build quality along with 3 pre-included ARGB fans that are going to act as intake for this PC. Anyways, here is our little Corsair starter box, if I'm able to take this out. And in here, we should find all of the screws and other necessary items we'll need to put whatever we want into the PC case. So that is to say, no, you don't need to buy your own screws or anything separate because it should all come in whatever PC case you choose. Well, let's open up the rear panel. And the good news is that if you're wondering, these 3 included ARGB fans are already pre-wired all together to just come out of these 2 ARGB and 4-pin fan header cables. So that's great to see. Although we need to clean up these cables a bit because they're kind of hanging out here. But we can do that later. Otherwise, let's put the motherboard into the PC case. So just to point this out, with this Corsair 3500X case, the manual is online. So if you have any questions on where to put what inside this PC case, you have to refer to the manual, which includes what screws you'll need for the motherboard, here where it says MBD. So we got 20 of these, and if we look at that plastic baggie which contained all the screws, I found the one that has the motherboard screws. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these out, put these over here for now. But now I'm gonna go ahead and count how many holes we have here on the motherboard and see if we have enough included standoffs to cover the PC case with the motherboard. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 holes on the motherboard. And if we check the PC case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 standoffs. So we have enough standoffs that'll cover off all the holes on the motherboard. Therefore, I'm gonna go ahead and drop this in. We're gonna butt up the IO shield to this part right here. And with that now lined up properly, I'm gonna go ahead and get the first of our screws into the motherboard. But one thing I want you to note is that when I'm putting these in, I'm not gonna tighten them. I'm gonna leave these just before I tighten them. I'm gonna wait until I get all these screws in first before I start tightening screws. Now, as I put in this last screw, I do want to point out the elephant in the room, which is that there's actually 11 holes on this motherboard, not 10, because right here, we've actually got a standoff that we could cover, which you could totally do in this PC case, because in the 3500X, you are given some standoffs you can actually screw into the PC case to cover off this one standoff hole. That said, with most ATX motherboards, you usually only need 9. I think having this 10th one is quite a bit. Regardless, you can go for it if you want. I think if you're to go for like an MSI, Asus, or Gigabyte board, it's gonna come with 9 holes instead of 10. But I'm gonna leave this one for now. And like I said earlier, now I'm gonna go ahead and start tightening these screws since they're all in. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up one corner, go to another corner, tighten this one up, go to another corner, and more or less repeat this in a crisscross formation. That way we put equal pressure on all sides of the motherboard. All right, and with that done, let's go ahead and talk about our power supply. Now, for our power supply, as long as you go with an 80 plus gold power supply, you're good. But as far as wattage goes, at minimum, you're gonna wanna at least get an 850 watt gold power supply. That is going to be enough to support pretty much any graphics card on the market other than an RTX 5090. But if you wanted to get even more wattage, you can go with a 1000 watt 80 plus gold power supply. Once again, no harm in doing that. And once again, what I have linked in the PCbuilds.gg link is going to be the best value power supply for this build that stays within the $1,500 budget and will work. However, we were building another PC before this and the power supply for that one didn't work. So I had to use the power supply for this build and that one. So I've got this super unconventional and very overkill 1350 watt FSP Hydro PTM 80 plus platinum power supply, which we're gonna go with in this build. And it's super overkill, and I don't recommend you do this, but I'm left with no other choice. But regardless, no matter what power supply you choose, there should be a power cable included in it. You will need this for later when you turn on the PC for the first time. And then we've got our 12-volt power cable. This is useful for NVIDIA GPUs and a few Radeon GPUs, but for our graphics card we're going with, we don't need one of these. But what we do need though is our motherboard power cable, 2 CPU power cables, since our motherboard here has an 8-pin and a 4-pin CPU power connector on the board. But since we are going with a Radeon GPU for this build, we are going to need 2 or possibly 3 PCIe power cables for our graphics card. So with those cables now situated, let's go ahead and pull out the unit, which again is super overkill. And I believe in no matter what power supply box you choose, there should be a plastic baggie which will contain 4 screws that you can use to install the power supply into the case, which we'll go ahead and do now. But before we do that, let's go ahead and plug in the cables into the power supply before inserting it into the bottom of the PC case. So since this is a fully modular power supply, we need to plug in all the cables we need for the power supply into the unit before we put it in the PC case, starting with our motherboard power connector, this big chunky one. This end that has PSU means it's the end that we're gonna go ahead and plug into our power supply. And as usual, this is only gonna go in one way. Make sure it's clicked in all the way, and you're gonna wanna plug this in to where it says motherboard on the power supply. Next, we've got our 2 CPU power cables, the ones that are obviously labeled CPU. We're gonna plug in the flat end into the power supply unit to where it says CPU. So we'll go ahead and plug one cable into here, plug in the other CPU cable right next to it. Finally, let's plug in both of our VGA cables, which we take the other end, These are the ones that actually go into the graphics card, but on this end, we'll plug these back into the power supply to where it says PCIe. You can choose any slot you want, doesn't matter. And there you go, those are all fully inserted. Now let's put this in the PC case. So with the fan side facing downwards in the PC case, we'll go ahead and hold these cables, but insert the power supply into here. Looks like we'll need to pull up some of these cables here from the front IO to make some room, like this. And then we will butt this up. All right, let's go ahead and line those up with the holes. And now, don't forget, we were given these case screws from the power supply box that we'll use to mount the power supply into the PC case. And if you're wondering about this big switch on the back of the power supply, you're gonna wanna keep this on the 0 because we're not ready to turn on the PC yet, but when we are, we'll flick that to the 1. All right. Now, while we're here, eventually for the cooler, I actually opted to go with a water cooler, which means it's gonna go here at the top of the PC case, meaning if I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the CPU power cables for our motherboard, it might be advised to do that now before we put in the big cooler. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the power cables that we'll need for this PC build and where to put them in. Okay, so we've got our 2 CPU power cables for our CPU power connector on the motherboard. And as you can see, one of them is an 8-pin, the other is a 4, meaning we'll use one of these where we'll go ahead and connect the 2 ends together. So you can see there's a little latch here on the top of these connectors. It's gonna line up with this notch, meaning this is only gonna go in one way. Flip that around, plug in both of these at the same time. There we go. Give it a firm press, make sure it's all the way in there. And right next to it, we just have that singular 4-pin. This is gonna be pretty easy to install. Okay, we've got that plugged in. I'm gonna hide this cable. And there you go, there's our CPU power connector done. Now here we've got our motherboard power connector, this big chunky one right here. We're actually gonna wanna connect both ends kind of like this at the same time. Once again, there's this latch here on the connector that's gonna line up with this notch on the connector, meaning you're gonna bend the 2 around so it's gonna fit the same way. And with a little persuasion, we'll get that in there. Press both ends in with 2 fingers and make sure that is all the way in there. You can be as forceful as you want. Make sure that connector is completely in. Then finally, here are those VGA power cables for our graphics card, but of course we're not ready yet, so we'll put these off to the side and install our water cooler. And next up for our CPU cooler, I'm going with this 360mm AIO, which by the way, is completely overkill. For our little Ryzen 5 processor, merely the only reason why I'm going with a water cooler in this build is for the aesthetics. But otherwise, if you wanted to save money, just get an air cooler. These will perform just as well with less maintenance, less troubles. They will cost way less, and these are just set them and done. Whereas these, the RGB could go out, the pump could go out, something could go out. But once again, the reason why I chose this specific dark flash one versus any other water cooler is because the actual pump is silver. And I think that's gonna match with our motherboard. So again, that's the only reason why I went with this cooler. You can go with one from NZXT, you can go one from Thermalright, you can get one from Corsair if you wanted to. It really doesn't matter. But whatever I have linked in that PCbuilds.gg link will be the most affordable 360mm RGB water cooler you can go with for this build. That'll be compatible as with any other water cooler on the market. What's cool about this dark flash unit though is the fans are already pre-installed to the radiator, which is very nice, as you can see. And it looks like all of the fans are coming out of a single cable. That is cool. And then here on the pump, we have a cable for the actual pump, and then the 5-volt ARGB header that controls the RGB on the actual pump. So that's all cool and handy. We're gonna basically do this, but no matter what cooler you go with, whether it's water or air cooler, you don't know how to install it inside the PC case, just refer to the manual. As a matter of fact, since we're working with an AMD system, we're gonna wanna follow the AMD instructions, which, if we flip this around, will show you how to actually mount the CPU cooler bracket to the CPU, which we'll have to take off these black plastic pieces. So I'm gonna go ahead, take care of this cooler in a little montage. Once again, no matter what cooler you choose, go ahead and follow the manual, and I'll catch up with you guys later. Okay, so we went ahead and installed the CPU cooler. Nothing really to note of. Installing an AIO in the 3500X was extremely straightforward. Just note that I've got the AIO pump right here, not plugged in yet to our motherboard. We have the RGB and the pump header for it, not yet plugged in. I'll show you where to do that because if we flip around the PC case, We need to go ahead and deal with all of these cables, and this may seem a little overwhelming, but remember, we already plugged in our power cables. So these big chunky connectors right here, we don't need to worry about those. All we need to worry about are these individual cables right here, which are either gonna be our case fans or our front IO buttons like these. So I'm gonna go ahead and untangle this. This right here is all of our front IO cables. Ooh, and look at that. So to explain what each of these are, first and foremost, we have our front panel connector. This is what our power button, reset button, and any of those things are. This is necessary. Here's our USB 3.0 header. This is necessary. Here's our Type-C header. We will need this. Here's our HD audio connector. We will need this. But one cool thing Corsair have done is that they've gone ahead and given you the fan header cable and the 5-volt ARGB cable that is already connected to all of the pre-installed fans in this PC case, which is super simple. So let's go ahead and start plugging these in first, in addition to the pump RGB and header, and the 3 fans that are attached to the water cooler as well, because this is another cable we got to deal with. So let's go ahead and take these one by one. So let's start off with our front panel connector here, which I should mention, by the way, all of the connectors for the motherboard can be found in the motherboard manual. There's this handy little map that shows you where to plug in what. So the front panel connector is universally always going to go to the bottom right of the motherboard. You can even see on the motherboard itself, it says F panel there. No matter if this is an Asrock, MSI Gigabyte, or Asus motherboard, these will all universally plug into the same spot. And this is only going to go in one way, so you can't mess up the pin configuration. Now over here we have our HD audio connector, and universally, no matter what motherboard you choose or what brand, it's always going to go on the bottom left of the motherboard where it says HD audio. And once again, with the pin layout here, it's only going to go in one way. Make sure that is in there. And then next up here, we have our USB Type-C header. This silver guy right here, it's going to go right here where it says USB 3 Type-C. This will only go in one way. Let's see, that's not gonna go. Let's try the other way. There we go. And right next to it, conveniently located, is our other USB 3.0 header, this chunky guy right here. Just note that there's this little notch on the connector that's gonna line up with the connection in a certain way. So if this doesn't go in right the first time, flip around the connector, which is what I'm gonna need to do. Here we go, that is flipped around. Let's press that in, make sure it's fully inserted, make sure that's in there, easy. So let's start off with our cooler cables and fan cables, starting with the pump. So here's the 5-volt header for the ARGB from our pump and the control for the pump. I'm gonna plug these into where it says AIO pump for this first fan header, which is the pump header, because this is obviously the pump. And then for our 5-volt ARGB header, I'm gonna just simply choose one of these, but I'm gonna go with the bottom one for space reasons. And now I've got the fan cable and the 5-volt ARGB header for the fans that are attached to the water cooler. So to control all these fans in one go, I'm gonna plug this into where it says CPU fan 1. And then for the 5-volt ARGB header, I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in this second 3-pin 5-volt ARGB header on the motherboard right next to the pump ARGB. That's all nice and tidy, which I quite like. Now for our 3 included case fans. Again, these are all pre-wired. They're all the same into a single cable, which I found right here. And since we already populated the 5-volt ARGB headers on the top right of the motherboard with the pump and the fans for the water cooler, we have just this singular 5-volt ARGB header and one of these fan headers here at the bottom for our 3 case fans. So first and foremost, let's take care of this 5-volt ARGB header. Plug that in. There we go. And then right next to it, we've got our fan header for all 3 fans in a singular cable, and that is all done. And finally, we've arrived to the graphics card, which for this $1,500 build, you can go with either of these, the 9070 XT or the 5070 Ti. Totally up to you, because as of filming this video, which admittedly is happening in late August of 2025, these are only separated by about $50, which is to say the 5070 Ti can be had for MSRP, but the 9070 XT, at least as of recording this video, is still around $700. Come on, AMD, lower the price on this thing, because at least NVIDIA did. But that is to say, maybe when I publish this video later this year, the 9070 XT is finally for MSRP, which if that is the case and the 5070 Ti is also for MSRP, I'd go for the 9070 XT. That $150 you save with this graphics card is completely worth it over the more expensive 5070 Ti, because in terms of both raw performance and even ray tracing, the 9070 XT either matches the 5070 Ti or beats it in quite a few scenarios, which is really cool to see. The only reason why I consider the 5070 Ti for 150 more is if you are a professional or a student who needs to use 3D modeling software with CUDA cores, or you specialize in AI. Otherwise, 9070 XT all the way. But if these are close to the same price, like as of filming this video, go with the 5070 Ti. Regardless, both are great options and certainly way better value purchases in this higher end PC range versus a super expensive RTX 5080. But I got a 9070 XT and we are gonna use one regardless. And here's what's cool. I've got both GPU options linked in the PCbuilds.gg link in the description down below. That way, if you woke up one day and you're like, never mind, I wanted the 5070 Ti, you can just go with that, or vice versa if you want to go with the 9070 XT. I've got both linked on there. They'll be taken care of. Anyways, here's the 9070 XT. And one thing I like to do before putting this in the PC case is, other than removing this PCI Express cover, I like to remove these stopper tabs for the display ports because these could get in the way of inserting this into the PC case. But now we need to go ahead and make room for this in the PC case, which, let's see, this is a 2-slot graphics card. And if we look at the topmost slot here, looks like we need to take out these 2 slots, not the top 2, but just one below. And before we put in this 9070 XT, with this Red Devil Edition card, we actually have 3 PCIe power connectors on this graphics card. And right now, we've only got 2 stemming from the power supply, which means if we pull out the power supply box, we are going to need to swap out one of those PCIe power cables with one of these that come with 2 ends rather than just 1. So I gotta go ahead and swap this real quick before we put in the graphics card. Okay, now, like I said, now we've got 3 8-pin PCIe power cables at our disposal to play around with for our 9070 XT. So now that we've got that covered, let's go ahead and take our graphics card, insert it into the topmost PCI Express slot, line it up with the connection. Looks like we have to press this in just a little bit more. Okay, I think it's gonna go in, so I'm gonna give it a firm press. There we go, both ends are in. And now I'm gonna take our 2 case screws that we just unscrewed for the PCI Express slot covers, and I'm gonna put this back into the graphics card. However, I like to put one hand and just raise the graphics card a little bit because this one's probably gonna need a sag bracket of some sort. And we are almost there. All we gotta do left is go ahead and plug in these PCIe power cables into the graphics card. The order doesn't matter, but I'm gonna plug in what's cleanest visually first. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug in this one on this end, give it a firm press, make sure that's clicked in. And again, know that there are these latches on the connector that are gonna line up with the graphics card. So actually, I'm gonna go ahead and do this middle one with the extension. Here we go, plug that in. And that is inserted. And then now I'm gonna plug in this first one, the last connector. There you go, that is clicked in. And if you thought you were done, you were technically right. But don't forget, now finally at the very end, go ahead and screw in those Wi-Fi antennas that came in the motherboard box. And there we go. We've got everything installed into the PC case. Let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit, put back on the panels, turn it on for the first time, and then install Windows. All right, let's go ahead and turn on this PC for the first time. So first things first, let's pull out that power cable that you found in your power supply box, and we're gonna plug one end into a wall outlet, and then the other end into our PC. And while we're here, we're gonna go ahead and flick the switch from the 0 to the 1, because we're gonna turn on this PC for real in a little bit. So, another important thing, here's our display cable. This is what's going to connect to our monitor. And what's very important that a lot of people mess up is that you wanna plug in your display cable into your graphics card. Down here, look where my hand is. See this cable? It's coming from down here where the graphics card is, where you're obviously gonna be computing the graphics for your games. Your motherboard up here doesn't do jack for graphics computing. With a you know, $700 graphics card. You probably want to plug that cable into the $700 graphics card you spent all that money on to compute your graphics. So here's your cable coming out from the graphics card, plugged into your monitor. Don't forget your monitor power cable. A lot of people also forget that. Plug in your keyboard and your mouse, and then finally, here is the USB flash drive that we'll use for our Windows bootable media device, which if you haven't created one of these on a separate PC, now's the time to do so. And creating one of these takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Just follow the video linked in the description down below showing you how to create one of these for free. And once you finish this up, plug this into any USB 3.0 port here on the back of the PC, so one of the blue ports. And with that all done, I'm just gonna go ahead and press the power button and wait and let this PC do its thing. So your PC may restart a few times here and there, but let it do its thing. It may need to restart a few times. That's typically normal. But what matters is after all of that is said and done, you should see a spinning circle right here. And now we are ready to install Windows on this PC. All right, so once you reach here, go ahead and hit next. Install Windows 11, check. Here's where you can go ahead and enter in your product key if you have one. I don't, that's totally fine. You can do this later. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip it. Here's where you can go ahead and choose your version. You can do Pro or Home, doesn't matter. I'm gonna do Pro because why not? Accept. Now there is our SSD where we're gonna go ahead and install Windows on, but before we do that, we gotta click Create a partition. And now we've got our primary drive already selected, hit next, install, and you're basically done. Okay, go ahead and choose your country. Now here is where you've got a few options. You can do this the regular way. You can go ahead and connect to the internet, proceed with installation, sign into your Microsoft account, and do this the long way. You're welcome to do that. However, you need to have access to the internet. So that can either be done with an Ethernet cable straight from your PC to your router. That's actually the fastest way to have your internet. Or if you have a spare USB Wi-Fi adapter, you can plug this into the back of your PC and be all good to go. But let's say you had neither of those things and you didn't have any internet and you couldn't proceed. Well, you can actually bypass this and install Wi-Fi drivers later by pressing Shift F10 on your keyboard, then typing in start space ms-cxh : local only, enter, and here you can just set up a local account for your PC. Although if you wanted to eventually run like Halo Infinite or Forza Motorsport or Forza Horizon, there you'll need to sign into a Microsoft account, and I've run into issues where I did this and then I couldn't run any of those Microsoft games. So at some point you will need to eventually connect to a Microsoft account, but if you're just doing Epic Games or Steam, then yeah, you can do what I just did right here. Which by the way, for all these privacy settings, I just tick them off because I want a bare bones Windows experience, which we've got going on right here. All right, so once you reach the Windows desktop, we need to go ahead and connect to the internet. So although I've got internet connection right now, let me show you how you would download it onto a separate USB, plug it into this PC on a separate computer, and do it pretty easily. So all you gotta do is type in the name of your motherboard, which for us is gonna be this one. And no matter the brand, if it's Asrock, Asus, or MSI, you're gonna wanna click on support. And then under support, you should see some sort of downloads. And then under here, you should see WLAN or anything that says wireless, Wi-Fi. There it says Realtek 88252 Wi-Fi driver. We need to download this. And then I know this is small and hard to read, but there is our Wi-Fi driver. We're gonna put it onto this USB drive, plug it into this PC, and then when we do, we'll go ahead and extract this. Then we'll click on this and essentially just install our Wi-Fi driver right then and there onto the PC. And once that is done, you should see a little pop up to the right of your screen, whether you have an Asus, Asrock, Gigabyte, or MSI board. This is a handy little reminder that's basically gonna let you install all of the various utilities for your motherboard all in one go, which for me unfortunately failed, but that's okay because we can literally download the same thing here on the motherboard page. We can click here under utility. There's the Gigabyte Control Center, full installation. That's basically what we saw, but somehow failed. So we'll let this download and this will take care of all the other various utilities for our motherboard. But if we didn't want to wait for that, heads up, they're all right here. So there's our audio driver, there's our chipset driver, our latest one. There's our, again, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth driver, and anything else you might need on top of the latest BIOS update. Okay, so here I am actually running that Gigabyte Control Center thing that didn't successfully run. Again, this will just let us go ahead and download all the various utilities and drivers for our motherboard. And again, you should see something similar to this, whether you have an Asrock, Asus, or MSI motherboard. All right, let's go ahead and run that Gigabyte Control Center now. And then right here, there should be this little update page where we can download all the various things we want for our motherboard, which for me, we don't need Norton, we don't need this Compass library, but we do need the chipset driver, the LAN driver, I guess. This is for the onboard graphics for our 9600X, although we won't be using that. HD audio drivers, we don't need backup, and we don't need Ryzen Master. And we can also go ahead and download the latest BIOS as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and install all of these, let them do its thing. As you can see, it'll take a while. I guess it decided to do all this stuff, but anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and let this run, let the PC restart, and then we'll install graphics card drivers. So all you gotta do left now with all of your motherboard utilities and chipset drivers installed is to go ahead and install your graphics card drivers, which is super simple. If you have an AMD graphics card, just type in AMD drivers into your search engine, click on the topmost link, click that Windows 10, 11 automatically detect driver. That takes care of all of the heavy work. But if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, just type in NVIDIA drivers, click on the topmost link. Once again, we're gonna bypass this and just do the automatic driver updates. We'll click on gamers and creators, download the NVIDIA app, run that, should be all good to go. And then we're gonna do one final thing in the BIOS, and that is enable XMP. And to access the BIOS, we're just gonna go ahead and press the delete key on our keyboard as soon as the brand of the motherboard pops up. Okay, we are in, and no matter if you have an MSI, Asus, Gigabyte, or Asrock motherboard, well, I guess if you have an Asrock motherboard, you may not see as simple of a UI as this. You may have to click on easy mode somewhere on screen, but it should bring you to something simple like this, and all you gotta do is just see where it says EXPO and make sure EXPO is enabled. It can be 1 or 2, it doesn't matter, and once you do that, save, exit, and then that's it. You're ready to get to gaming. Okay, I'm gonna let you know, can this PC run Fortnite? Absolutely. I'm not even going to bother testing Fortnite because Fortnite is going to be way too easy to run on this PC. Here's what, oh my goodness. Here's what's actually gonna tax this PC, Battlefield 6. It looks like right now we're actually at 60 FPS. Is that because FreeSync is on? Or sorry, VSync. I want VSync off, yet the FPS meter, that's not right. I think we need to go to full screen. Ah, here we go. There's the FPS. Okay, wow. 140 FPS right off the bat, and this is the Battlefield 6 open beta. And I don't know if you guys saw that. Let me go ahead and deploy on this teammate right here. If we check out the settings right here, we are chilling at about balanced settings, high preset, at 1440p. You're getting about 144. Oh, I feel like, let's see, 166. Yeah, this game's running good. Really good at 1440p. It could do 4K. Battlefield 6 could genuinely run at 4K on this PC. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna do that right now. So here is Battlefield 6 beta at 4K. We're getting about 90-ish FPS in this big open whatever the heck is going on. I'm probably gonna get sniped because, you know, I have no clue what I'm doing. But dude, for a beta, this is running so good. This is at 4K, guys. At 1440p, we were getting about 144 FPS, and here at 4K, close to 100. That's really good. Wow. Most modern day PC games, when they come out, they're ass as far as optimizations go. That is not the case for this game. This game is running quite well on this PC right now at launch. Can we get someone? Oh, yes, we can. And I'm good. Let's try another game. Okay, we are running Cyberpunk, and I'll let you guys know, I ran this game at 1440p just now, and I was like, I'm gonna cut the recording because it was getting about 200 FPS and above, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense for a single player game. We wanna go for graphics here because I've now amped it up to 4K unintentionally with the 9070 XT. And here on graphics, I do have frame generation helping us out. I am cool with that because this is a single player game. We aren't going to be, say, doing multiplayer on this. We want to go for maximum graphical quality. In that case, we do want to use frame generation. And once again, this implementation we have in Cyberpunk is pretty good, all things considered. But 95 FPS, and this is at Ray Tracing Ultra. Let's look. Well, it was on Ray Tracing Ultra, but look, everything is on Ultra. Only things we don't have ticked on right now are path tracing. That is asking, I think, a little bit too much out of that 9070 XT. I'm not gonna turn it on. But just for full-on ray tracing, this is 4K, and our Radeon graphics card is doing it pretty well. This notion that AMD graphics cards suck at ray tracing may have been true 2 years ago. But in 2025, with RX 9000, that is no longer the case. AMD have caught up in ray tracing. The only thing they need to catch up on next is truly being on par with NVIDIA for their frame generation technology, because FSR 4 is pretty good. The only thing holding it back is its implementation across a bunch of games. That's where NVIDIA has the leg up, is on the amount of games DLSS 4 supports. FSR 4 isn't quite there yet, so otherwise the tech though, it's getting really close. And this is just with FSR 3. Yeah, 90, that's enough for a single player game. Let's do another game. Now I wanna close things off with Counter-Strike 2, and yes, I intentionally wanna run this game over, say, a game like Fortnite, because this is a game that is going to be CPU bound, because Counter-Strike 2 is incredibly easy to run. Oh my goodness, that was terrible. And I want to show that 9600X, despite not being like a 9800X 3D or something like that, is still going to be allowing you to unleash the full potential of a 9070 XT in a game where you'd want really high frame rates. Ooh, yeah, I've got 30 seconds left. This is gonna be fast. Are we happy with over 300 FPS? Because this is at 1440p, not at 4K. Man, I don't know if you got like a crazy 1440p 360 hertz monitor. I mean, you might be upset. There you go, now we're at 360. I don't see that being the case, because if you could just got a standard 1440p 240, this PC is easily gonna be touching those highs FPS-wise with that 9700X, or sorry, 9600X. Okay. So whether it's graphically intensive games, ray tracing, or games that don't utilize graphics, they just want all the frame rate, this PC can clearly do it all. It's in fact, I think, a little bit too much for the average gamer. But let me summarize all that in the outro. All right, this is what I think of this $1,500 PC build. Don't build it. I know damn well a lot of you who are watching this video are gonna go, I wanna pair this up with a 1440p monitor. How is it gonna run this game at 1440p? Here's my answer. My $1,200 gaming PC, that is $300 cheaper than this, can already do that. If you're gonna pair this up with a 1440p monitor, you are genuinely wasting your money. This thing is a 4K gaming PC without spending a lot of cash. Battlefield 6, open beta, not a problem at 4K. Oblivion Remastered, admittedly with frame generation added in, not a problem at all at 4K. Heck, even Counter-Strike 2, I chose to deliberately run that at 1440p to show that theoretically, even with a 9600X, so not like a 9800X 3D, you're maxing out any 1440p 360Hz monitor on the frickin' market. And sure, who wants to run Counter-Strike 2 at 4K? I mean, you can do that in this PC, maybe you'll get 240 FPS, so that's theoretically maxing out any 4K 240Hz monitor on the market. This thing's already fast enough. It's too fast. Like, to build my $1,200 build, please, you don't need this insane of a PC unless you want to get that 4K monitor and get that 4K gaming experience. Because, man, this 9070 XT, thanks to some of the latest driver improvements, on paper, in terms of rasterization, is faster now than a 5070 Ti. And in certain games, not all of them, it could beat a 5080 as well. Which, I believe it. I've seen it, I believe it. Goodness gracious, what a graphics card, man. Just about the only thing I'll comment is if you wanted to do path tracing in this PC build, so the next step up from ray tracing, you're gonna want an NVIDIA graphics card, you're gonna want that 5070 Ti, but that's about the only reason why I consider getting that over the 9070 XT, unless the 5070 Ti can be had for only, say, 50 bucks more. If it can only be had for that much more than a 9070 XT, I'd pick it up. It's a pretty well-rounded graphics card, but if you can find a 9070 XT for a good price, god damn. What a graphics card, man. Anyways, if you want to build this PC, I don't recommend it, but if you wanted to, I've got it linked in the description down below as a PCBuilds.gg link. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching. And this is the Skyroll channel, signing out.